We are entering a topic that very few YouTubers like to dive into, or rather very few that's willing to talk about it, because when it comes to this topic, it's cut and dry. Very few talk about it because there's no one out there trying to justify it. At least not ones on YouTube of all places. You see, when it comes to this topic of bestiality or zoophilia, it's universally agreed that mating with an animal is downright abusive and disgusting. So why is it that this video is talking about this topic? It's because, as you may be aware, just like how there's a map community on Twitter, there's also a group of people who call themselves zoosexuals that are trying to convince others that mating with animals isn't harmful at all and instead trying to equate it to gay marriage. Now humans, I want to address this problem within and outside the Twitter sphere. As stated before, very few people have actually gone into this topic. There's loads of videos about maps, but not zoosexuals. You think that these kinds of YouTubers, who have tons of subscribers on their channel, would make at least one video on these kinds of people. After all, they're kind of like low-hanging fruit. But when I type in the search bar about zoosexuals or bestiality, while there are videos talking about the topic in general, there's hardly any videos exposing the Twitter underbelly of this sort of behavior. I wouldn't be shocked if this video in particular was made to be buried by other YouTube videos. After all, there's a good chance that YouTube is keeping those kinds of videos hush-hush and sweeping it under the rug. But my audience isn't limited on YouTube. I may not get attention by other YouTubers, but I can still talk to people on Twitter and advertise myself there to spread the video like wildfire. But there's a good chance that the zoosexuals will try their best to silence me. After all, Coyote Lovely's Twitter account has been removed. It's funny how Twitter works. They'll go haywire if you say something like how pedophiles are a disease of sorts and need to be purged, but having actual child pornography there? They aren't going to do much since it doesn't violate the TOS. Somehow. In order to start my crusade against these sorts of people, I need to address one person that seems to be very outspoken about being a zoosexual, and seems to be the base of all zoosexual justification of wanting to mate with an animal. Still propaganda. There's an entire thread on his pinned tweet, but there's one part that I like to focus on. In his thread, he used an article made by Sarah Charlotte, which I'm pretty sure I just butchered the last name, about how horses and other animals can consent to a degree. I won't go into detail, but to sum it all up, humans and animals can form a typical bond with each other that could count as consent. For example, a horse could develop a bond with a human and allow themselves to be trained by humans, petting, grooming, and a few other actions that make horses feel rather safe around humans because they have nothing to fear. Somehow, zoo propaganda managed to interpret this as a way for humans to mate with animals. That's not true. There's no indication within that article that says anything about humans mating with animals, and for good reason. As soon as that thread was released, Sarah had to respond to him. In the most recent article, she stated that she does not consent of her article being used by a zoophile. In her article, she has stated the following, end quote, "The article is about consent, assent, and dissent in animals and how we need to pay attention to the subtle cues of yes and no to ensure that we are not exploiting them for our benefits. Mammals, humans included, can be submissive and compliant to do things they don't want to do in order to prevent further harm. This includes rape. Submission and shut down in the face of danger and life threats are survival responses. Calm does not equal consent. A body mechanically responding with arousal and orgasm to unwanted sexual stimulation is not consent. Full stop. Ultimately, there cannot be true consent when there's a power differential to this extent. Hence the reference to animals asserting as opposed to consenting, which is why children and animals cannot consent to sex with human adults. Children cannot legally consent, and neither can animals. I use the word consent in the article to refer to choice and agency and the ability to say yes and no. Animals live in a human-dominated world, and as much as I promote the importance of animals having the choice and agency, at the end of the day, they lack the same power of humans have. It is up to human adults to use their powers carefully and be protectors, not violators, of vulnerable beings. That's the point of the article. How this was missed is beyond me. And so far, that tweet and thread that was made by Zoo Propaganda still stands to this very day. When someone who referenced you has called you out on it, your entire narrative has already fallen into pieces. This thread is as accurate as a magic 8-ball. Of course, the average zoosexual will not heed our words. They are so into confirmation bias. They will never watch this video, nor will they watch another video which tells others the negative effects of mating with an animal. In the description down below in this video, I have a link that can send you to a video that explains bestiality. I'll show you a piece of that video so you can understand why mating with an animal is a very poor decision to make.
Women who engages in bestiality comes with dangers. One study shows that males who had sex with animals were at a higher risk for penile cancer than males who didn't. This is probably because microtraumas on the penile tissue are produced during sex. This exposes the human tissue to animal secretions and other infectious agents that can lead to cancer. Several other case studies show colorectal trauma and harmful bacterial infections are also possible after sex with an animal. So, why do people do it? One study identifies several motivations for bestiality. For instance, there are maybe situational reasons where people have limited access to human partners, or financial incentives, where people have sex with animals for pornography or for sex shows. There may also be...
So not only is mating with an animal, it's considered to be rape, but also if you do have sex with an animal, you may end up getting a disease. Humans are far more complex individuals than animals. Humans require more than simple needs like food and water and sleep. Even if we were to ignore the evidence that says otherwise, the only reason any man or woman would want to mate with an animal is because they're desperate for sex. Like a living blow-up doll. There are other reasons that someone may end up mating with an animal, but those cases are extreme cases, and those extreme cases does not apply to people like Kerfluffle Fur and Flay the Dragon. These people are so desperate to get a lover or just some sexual partner that they will find anything to relieve themselves. That may be the reason why they want to enter the furry fandom so much, because the furries have sexualized fursuits, and the closest thing to performing bestiality in a legal sense. Personally, I don't care if you have sex in a fursuit. I don't care what your kinks are if they're not in the range of disgusting, non-consensual acts. You can act like an animal for all I care as long as you're not performing it with an actual animal. This is why the furry fandom almost universally opposes zoosexuals, because they are not animals. They can pretend to be one, but at the end of the day, they're still humans underneath the customs or personas. Remember, humans cannot perform the same mating rituals like dogs or cats can, even if someone was to wear a fursuit. Now, that I've gone into such details about how zoosexuals are deranged lunatics that have no sense of directions and instead wish to do nothing but harm to animals, I hope that this is the only video that needs to be made in order to get my point across. Please share this video on Twitter and YouTube. Like and subscribe for more. I would like to thank Zoo Folks for showing me this article, and Sarah for standing up against Zoo's propaganda. As I've stated before, they will try to silence me, and I can only hope that more YouTubers like Blair White bring into this spotlight and use my video as a reference to explain why bestiality is wrong. And who knows, maybe I can make this a full-time job of mine, should I become popular enough, or at least making a bit of money on the side. But it all depends on how far this rabbit hole goes. This is the Llama channel, and I am signing out.
God damn, can't you just be fucking normal?